Let me run you through some important numbers as we approach a potential ground war between the US of A and Israel on one hand and Iran on the other hand. Now, especially because the specter of ground war is still not, unruleable, permit me to use that English in the context of this war. Particularly because the war goals of the US of A and Israel cannot be achieved without a ground war. I will give you important, examples of them. One, they cannot capture the Strait of Hormuz and take control of it from Iran without a ground war. The seas around the Strait of Hormuz must be captured. They have not captured them yet. And then the coasts and the land around the Strait of Hormuz must also be captured. In fact, best case scenario is best the entire country is captured. That is the best way to seize control of and maintain control of the Strait of Hormuz by the Americans and the Israelis. Two is regime change. They cannot achieve regime change. They cannot even start to think of regime change until a ground war has been fought and won by the Americans and the Israelis. Number three is capture of Iran's enriched uranium, about 1,000 pounds, according to estimates. They cannot capture them without, a ground war. So a ground war still must happen, at least from the perspective of the US of A and then Israel. Now, let us look at the numbers together. The numbers the Americans will be bringing, to the war theater, and the numbers the Iranians will be bringing to the war theater. Now, to the Americans, active forces, active army, fighting forces, plus army reserves, plus National Guard spread across the 50-something states. Total number, not up to 1 million as at current count. Now, civilian staff, I'm talking, cooks, chefs, laundrymen, folks who work around the military, but are not particularly trained to fight, so to say, are not expected to fight. Plus their numbers, plus that of active fighters, plus that of army reserves, plus that of National Guardsmen. Total number, not up to 1.3 million. So as of this material time, if America does not immediately trigger, a mandatory, compulsory national draft that will essentially force a lot of young people to come into and fight for the US military, whether they like to or not. The total possible number America can possibly bring to this potential ground war between the US of A and Iran is 1.3 million, stretched thin. Now, what are the numbers Iran is bringing to the table? Before the war started, as of February 27, total numbers, ground fighters, Basijis, Atesh, IRGC. Let us give the entire thing a maximum of maybe 6 million. Professional fighters, plus Basijis, across both the IRGC on one hand and the Atesh on the other hand. Maximum 6 million. And the largest, the bloated largely by, the Basijis, who are essentially volunteers who are trained to at least handle some basic, weaponry, but are not expected, are not uniformed, and are not expected to actively feature, in a war, except, in cases where there is utmost military pressure. However, something happened after the war started on February 28th. There was this massive fervor from the people of Iran. You remember how they used to troop, onto the streets every night, night after night, even during the hunger and the thirst of Ramadan. They will step out every night in their large numbers in virtually every city and town of Iran to rally in favor and in support of their leaders. What we call the rally around the flag effect. Massive nationalistic fervor. I don't know who thought about it, but at some point somebody, maybe among the authorities in Iran, simply set up a basic website and said, Jiang Father, that's the name of the website. Jiang Father. I don't know what it means in English. It's a Persian word essentially. Jiang Father, that's what they called it. So essentially, the idea behind the website was, if you want to, in case a ground war happens, we need every hand on deck. We need as many numbers as possible to counter the so-called invaders. If you want to fight for Iran, and it's not just fighting for Iran, if you are ready to lay down your life, to essentially sacrifice yourself for Iran, register on this website. As that when President Pezeshkian, the president of Iran, and the Speaker of Parliament, Dr. Golibaf, registered on the website, 14 million people had already registered. So, because the idea behind the Jamfada website is that when you register, it will give you a registration number. The registration number it gives you is your end among those who registered. What it means is that if you are the first to register, you will be given number 1. If you are the second to register, you'll be given number 2. If you are the 50th to register, you'll be given number 50. So if you are the 14 millionth and 44, person to register, you'll be given the number 14 million and 44. President Pezeshkian and the Speaker Golibaf registered when the numbers they were given were 14 million plus. They displayed a screenshot of the registration entry with the registration number on the Jamfada website. Now, as of yesterday, just before I came up to the studio today to do this video, the Jamfada website has captured no less than 25 million Iranians who are ready to not just fight, but to also sacrifice their lives for their country. Now the question is, 25 million, that is essentially the biggest army in the world. No country, including China and India, who boast populations of over 1.4 billion. No country has a ground force, an infantry force that numbers up to 25 million in the world. None. So it means as we speak, Iran has by far, the biggest infantry fighting force in the world. The question arises, what exactly is the quality of this fighting force? Is it not just full of essentially folks who don't even know, can't even handle an ordinary pistol, not to talk of AK-47s, not to talk of basic survival training and all? There are 2 reasons why those 25 million sacrificers, so to say, are not exactly fluff. Number 1 is that Iran has a compulsory male military training that lasts for between 18 to 24 months, between 1.5 years to 2 years. You know what NYSC is in Nigeria? NYSC is essentially civilian SACA paramilitary training. They will teach you how to climb some ropes, teach you how to do a bit of march past, absolutely no weapons training, nothing truly, military in terms of training, but a bit of survival, a bit of, paramilitary training here and there, like that. God forbid, Nigeria has never had, a military crisis where it has to conscript its NYSC, products. In fact, we don't pray that situation ever happens. In Israel, they have a compulsory military training. In fact, that one does not just involve males in Israel, it also involves females, except some sections of people who are exempted. In Iran, it is male only, and it is 18 to 24 months. So it means that all of those 25 million people, except a tiny minority, actually have basic military training that can be leveraged upon when military pressure actually happens, like it is like it may happen soon if the ground war happens. Second is that Iran has a militarized history of an 8-year war between Iran and Iraq, where a lot of folks who are even old now, not to talk of the young who are doing the compulsory military service of training of 18 to 24 months. Even the old, the aged, the folks over 60, the folks over 70, the folks over 80 actually had some military training in the course of the reality of the Iran-Iraq war that happened between 1980 to 1988. In short, it is safe for the US of A to assume that those 25 million registrants at the Jamfada, on the Jamfada website, will be clashing with the maximum of the 1.3 million ground fighters America will be bringing to war. How do you think things will go when the chips go down? Thank you very much. Let me have your answers. Thank you.